Good morning, Paul and Bhargav. It's Thursday, the 13th of April. Here's the heads up brief for today. For the Southeast Asia production, we covered 20 issues. In North Asia, we covered 6. And for the Australasia and Pacific Islands, we covered 5. In South Asia, we covered 13 issues, plus the major issues in Europe, Middle East, and Africa.
Okay, excellent. Go ahead, Uday.
In Indonesia, Densus 88 killed 2 Jemaah Islamiyah terror suspects in 2 shootouts in 2 regencies in Lampung yesterday, and they're conducting raids for suspects who have fled.
Yeah, that's interesting. Lampung's always been a little bit of a hot spot. Just keep an eye on that. Thank you.
Yeah. In the Philippines, authorities said that they, along with the United States, are finalizing plans to conduct joint maritime activities, including patrols in the South China Sea. They also want to expand this with other countries later in the year.
Okay, thanks, Uday. Obviously, there's an ongoing tiff between the Philippines and China. You know, just a few days ago, the Philippines basically was trying to send signals of neutrality and dictate how American forces were utilizing their ability to project force from air bases in the Philippines. So this is a bit of a backtrack. Obviously, there's some interesting intel briefs from America to the Philippines going on behind the scenes, because that's a quick U-turn by the Philippines. Thank you.
Right. In Thailand, the United Thai Nation Party has announced that it will hold a nationwide election caravan after the Thai New Year celebrations. Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha will be the key speaker at several of the rallies, which will tour through several provinces.
Okay, thanks a lot. Look, just on that, interestingly, it's New Year's Day here today, the first and the only public holiday, but it's actually a 2-day festivity, which will carry actually into Saturday. So this year it'll be a 3-day. People are on the streets throwing water, celebrating Songkran. I just want to point out, some listeners may not be aware of, going back to the Densus 88, they're the anti-terror specialist police, Lampung in southern Sumatra. Okay, back to you, Uday.
Right, Paul. Also in Thailand, in Chiang Rai in the north, 3 drug smugglers were killed in a clash with security forces near the border on the 11th of April.
Okay, it's interesting because, of course, the Myanmar has a lot of very powerful armed insurgencies there. So killing 3 guys that are actually, you know, mules for the drugs won't have an impact. The real issues are up there inside the very, very strong armed ethnic organizations. Thank you.
In Timor-Leste, 2 unspecified martial arts groups clashed earlier today in a place called SUAI. I'm not sure how to pronounce that.
Mate. Suai. It's right down near the border with Indonesia on the southern side of Timor-Leste. There's a bit of conflict going on. There's been a lot of government funding going to Suai to try and build it up as a future oil and gas hub to process onshore from the Timor Sea. So that's it's actually a very sleek little town. Other than that, they're also building a large airport to try and develop it, because it's obviously a lot closer to mainland Australia than the North Coast where Dili is. Clashes there amongst the community have become less frequent, but still occur from time to time. I also just want to flick back to that Shanghai issue. Obviously, the drug smuggling and also the movement of people across the border to seek safety along the Myanmar-Thai border means that people should be aware of that western border is, the northwestern border is a tricky spot to go to, especially clients now that may be travelling Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai, Mae Sok. These are all interesting border crossing areas and fascinating for tourists to go to, but it isn't as benign as the beautiful scenery, the mountainous scenery makes you think it is. Thank you.
Right. In South Asia, 4 soldiers were killed inside a military base in Bathinda in Punjab yesterday. It seems to be an internal disagreement, but details are unclear, and the suspects have fled the base. Security forces are searching for them in Bathinda and in the wider Malwa district.
This is concerning, especially when such a report comes when the state of Punjab is on the boil with issues of Khalistan and supporters of Khalistan causing a ruckus within the state. Now, in the last time Punjab was boiling, that was in 1990s and the 1980s. There were issues of rebellion within the Indian Armed Forces. We need to wait for more details because there are conflicting reports from the authorities themselves. There was an FIR registered against 2 unknown people who broke into the base and stole INSAS rifles and ammunition. Whether that is related to the reports of fratricide causing the killing of 4 soldiers. Fratricide, especially within the Indian Army specifically, has been a bit of a concern in the last 10 years with over 20 incidents. Now, Indian Army arguably is among the largest in the world with 1.5 million active personnel, and the number goes up to 5 million if we include reservists and the paramilitary forces. And paramilitary forces themselves have similar numbers in terms of mental health issues and the fratricide. So the Indian Army, especially the security establishment as a whole, need to look into mental health aspects as well as internal issues in the near future.
And is it also a reflection of the cultural complexities and communal conflicts, Bhargav, that are just carried into through the recruitment process?
To a greater extent, Indian Army is one of the institutions where the communal issues has not been able to leave an impact, with exceptions. And the exception include the Sikh issue or the Khalistan issue in Punjab. This goes back to 1984 when Indian Army invaded the Golden Temple, which is the most So it goes back to that. The conflict or the break happened there. Except that critical issue, you do not see communal issues in the country having an impact on the security forces.
Thanks.
Thanks. In India, speaking of communal issues, 10 people were injured in a clash between the Hindu and Muslim communities in Odisha yesterday. And in Mumbai and Maharashtra, Christian protesters yesterday gathered to demonstrate against the rising violence against minority communities in the state. This has increased since the former chief minister Uday Bakhshi was deposed.
So this is a major concern at the state level. It's a matter of law and order. At the same time, we need to also note that the status and the nature of minorities of different communities do matter. For example, Muslims amount to about 200 million people within India, and Christians number up to about 42 million, and within a population of 1.4 billion people. Now, the nature of each of these minorities depend on how they were integrated at the local level, at the grassroots level. So the consternation and the clashes at the ground level are highly localized, and the state government have a direct impact as far as the maintenance of law and order is concerned. As you rightly pointed out, the Thackeray government was known to be a lot more hands-on in terms of tackling issues of minority affairs, as opposed to the largely right-wing Hindu Nationalist Party in power right now.
Right. Lastly, in Europe, according to suspected leaked US military documents, about 350,000 Russian and Ukrainian soldiers have been killed or injured since the start of the war. Now, these estimates are much higher than what Russia or Ukraine has said thus far. As per the documents, the US claims that Russia has suffered about 200,000 total casualties, while Ukraine has suffered between 125 to 130,000 total casualties.
Hey, this is really interesting, Uday, because fundamentally Russia is an invading force. When you're invading somebody that's dug in, you actually accept a casualty of 3 to 1. So if you look at 200,000 to say, let's bracket it and say 125,000 as a invading force or the force on the attack to people that are defending, you'd be extremely happy with that ratio, which means you'd have to suspect that this American intelligence is good. That's what they do really well. They got the technology for it. They got the human in for it. So that's another concerning piece of objective data coming out that is beyond the Western media spin that wants to make it that Russia's crumbling and they're going to become back into the Stone Ages, and the West shall roll on with superior values of social and democratic and capitalism, and Russia imperialist communists will shrink around a campfire. You know, other than the Western media and the spin from Zelensky, who's got his communities right up to their neck in problems, I'm not seeing any objective data and facts that support the Western media's take on this. Thank you. Bhargav?
Nothing from my end, Paul. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.